Welcome to Barako BS, where I try to answer or deflect on all your questions. What is Barako, you might ask? Well, it's one of the coffees that I'm drinking from the Philippines that's known for its strong, bold taste, just like the answers, hopefully, and maybe the questions that I give you. If you have any questions, send a voicemail. All you have to do is go on your phone and say, blah, 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 and then email it to me, k@kabuhay.com, or go on IG, send a voice message in the DMs, or better yet, record yourself with your phone and video and ask your question. So what's going on? Well, I'm back from Dallas, Texas, where the stars at night are big and bright. I was there to tattoo and to speak with a local Phil-Am community, Pace, shout out to Pace, about what we've been doing specifically here in San Francisco in the Soma Pilipinas Cultural District. I talked about how to use our script as a what I call cultural identifier to let folks know that y'all are entering the Pilipinas Cultural District. So think about it. When you go to Japantown, Chinatown, Little Ethiopia, Koreatown, one of the first things you see are the non-Roman alphabet signs. A lot of them are food, small businesses, but it's like, oh shoot, I don't understand what these signs say. I must be somewhere else. But what's interesting is that people may not be able to read what those signs say. But they know what culture it belongs to. I do these tests at my workshops where I show like Arabic script, Thai script, and people more or less, general know. So I was also in Dallas to film a proof of concept of an upcoming YouTube series about food and tattooing. I don't want to spill too much, but anyway, y'all like my hat? That's Bucky's. On the 23rd, all right, I will be at Daly City, Legacy Filipino Martial Arts to do a Batok workshop at 12 noon. That's this Sunday. Then on May 31st, June 1, I'll be back at Pagdiriwang at the Seattle Center. If you're interested in a Batok ceremony, hit me up. I'll be in Seattle maybe for a few days. Also, then my little Mamba Batok book should be out by then. I'll also have the Batok art kits as well. So, all right, enough yapping. First question.
If someone wanted a Batok tattoo, but in their research of their family tree, they were having difficulty in tracing back to a specific indigenous group, how would a Batok practitioner approach the design? For a specific example, their grandfather spoke Ilocano, but as far back as they could trace, the family was born and raised in the Manila area. In your opinion, would that be enough to use Ilocano designs?
This is a common issue, especially in the diaspora. So how do we trace back to a specific indigenous group? I have to speak about like the term indigenous. There's the official or the term indigenous, means specifically coming from a certain area, like being born native, but some people, if the question is, I guess, if you're Tagalog, are you indigenous? You could be indigenous to the Tagalog region, but you're not from a socio-political, economic, I guess, label indigenous, if you know what I mean. Because the indigenous folks, the Lumad in the Philippines specifically, and all around the world, they are having land taken away from them, discrimination, being murdered, all of those issues. So I try to stay away from that term when it comes to tattooing. I like to say, what is your lineage? Because there's a thought sometimes that you have to be tied to these, quote unquote, indigenous tribes in order to get a tattoo. Blocker for some people, because from what we know that, most groups more or less did tattoo. And back then, we were all indigenous to a certain area. So if you're unable to find your lineage, your family tree, there's something that I talk about a lot, is that when we're in grade school here in America, we are given this homework to trace our family tree, and it's usually a piece of paper with a big oak tree with, that's 3 stories high and has all these blank fields where you can fill in your great 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 grandparents. But of course, us as Filipinos and many people of color, or people that have experienced colonization, cannot go that deep, don't have a family tree. I say that I have a family bush, and this bush just goes up to my grandparents and then the current generation that I see. It's wild that, we sometimes can't even, at least my generation, I would say Gen X, I guess, or maybe millennials, can only go as far back as the grandparents. That's wild to think about. But as time goes on, it's gonna probably be until great grandparents. But even that's wild though to think about. Why can't we go at least to like 2 or 3 generations prior to our grandparents? It's very frustrating. Get angry and all of that stuff. So it's very valid. All right. So in regards to this question, and specifically, grandfather who spoke Ilocano, and that's more or less what they know, but then they were born and raised in the Manila area, go to Manila specifically for work. And that's because Manila is the socioeconomic epicenter in the Philippines. You go there for work from all over the country. And, there's a generation where they had to hide that they were, promdi is what it's called. Promdi. It's a derogatory term, like prom. So, they would try to hide their regional accents. If they had a Bisaya accent or Ilocano accent, they would try to hide that and be more of this metropolitan Tagalog. What do you call it? I don't know. So whatever. They try to blend in, I guess. I think that's a good indication of that. So then what happens is that, they kind of ditch their old ways. Like, I'm from Manila. I was raised here. I speak here. I work here. I went to college here. And so to America, then there's another layer. It's like, that was in the Philippines. That was a long time ago. Then when the kids or grandkids start to ask, it's like, I'm just from Manila, right? Because yeah, that's where they made their money. That's where they worked. They got married and all of these things. Then there's that or recolonization within the Philippines, by the Manila Tagalog centric folks. So in my opinion, is it enough to, use an Ilocano design? I would say yes. It is. It is. You only know what you know. I've said it. I'm a big fan of smaller pieces, and then as you learn more, adding to it. But I would even try and dig deeper if you can. Like Ilocos is really big. Like what part? Is it bordering any other areas in the Cordilleras? What were the stories behind that? You can maybe take a DNA test, stories and the DNA test. Maybe you can somehow get a better idea of where you're from. But yes, so if you know that, yeah, they are from the Ilocos, that's a good starting point. And if that's all you have right now, then
Regarding using designs from a marital partner's heritage, if someone were married into a Visayan family, but were not Visayan themselves, would it be appropriate to integrate Visayan designs into their batok?
So I get this a lot. I've created, I'll speak one specifically that I have direct experience with. One is that the person that was tattooing has lineage in Cebu, but then his partner is Tagalog, and they wanted something that connect them both. So I incorporated a Tagalog pattern within the lawig, the creation story, on the shoulder for this person. And so it is quite common for us, as in our practice, that we do combine, because we intermarry in different ethno-linguistic groups and even different countries. Like what is the connection to the Philippines? How are they benefiting the people of the Philippines, and the diaspora? What is the story there? So yes, it is quite common for us in our practice. And when I say us, I'm not talking about all hand tappers or even machine. I mean, this next question will kind of talk about that, but I'm specifically talking about traditional hand tapping. And again, when I say traditional hand tapping, in ceremony, patterns that are connected to your lineage, and then 100% handmade hand tap tools. So that is how we define it in our practice. But yes, it is common where we can integrate those together. All right. Third and final.
What is your opinion on tattoo artists who create designs that mix elements from various indigenous Filipino groups and/or integrate tattoo designs from Samoan, Tongan, Maori cultures without consideration to the recipient's actual heritage?
It's I guess tribal tattoos that I was exposed to in the 90s, that now that we call it Polypino, because we didn't know any better. I've come across people that kind of have regrets of getting, is like, oh, had I known that we had our own patterns, I wouldn't have appropriated this Samoan, Maori, or Hawaiian or hodgepodge of a pattern of this sleeve. And many were influenced by The Rock, right? Like, let me get the half pectoral and then the half sleeve and then all of these things, because that's what was out there in the cultural zeitgeist, especially in the late 90s, early 2000s, where we didn't really know much. And so I don't think there's shame in that. It is what it is. It's kind of like having a wrong bite tattoo that you got in 2001 or in 1997. It's like people didn't know. But I think now, though, I mean, because if the artist is upfront and say, yeah, this is a mix of different patterns, et cetera, but it would be an issue, in my opinion, and many people's opinion, if they say this is a traditional Visayan tattoo pattern and is based on, because you can kind of twist everything. These dots are for your kids. These zigzag lines are for when you got a promotion at your corporate IT job. And then these things on your chest, these lines, because you're a warrior, you served in the military, or you were a cop, or you saved a cat. Anything can be kind of twisted, right? So I think it depends on, you're talking about intention, and then who is doing it. What is their track record? What is their mission? Is their mission just to tattoo people and make beautiful art? That's fine too. I think there just has to be that transparency. I'm not a fan of artists that pass this off as, say, this is 100% authentic, and what is that anyway? This is traditional, but using machines, in a tattoo shop. It's not even in a traditional context, because, like I said, in our practice, in ceremony, I don't know if folks are having ceremonies at a tattoo shop with a bunch of chairs around. I don't know. Are they having a food offering? Things like that. Maybe they have lineage appropriate tattoos, patterns, specifically not just Visayan in general, but Eastern, Western, Boholano, or if they're Pangasinan, not just a generic monolith Filipino patterns. I don't know. And then the third is definitely not many, I doubt, that are creating handmade tools. And when I say handmade tools, I'm talking about around the combs, like making the bone combs. And that is the practice that was lost. And that's what we are trying to revive. So that is traditional. A modern could be like, taping a shader to a stick and hitting it, But the craft of creating these tools is also an extension of the spirituality, the ceremonial aspect of this type of tattooing. So I think that, yes, it is beautiful and all that, I appreciate it. I see a lot on Instagram and I like them. It looks cool, like all the wavings and, some of them maybe, tend to be kind of repetitive. It's like, all right, they're going through the deltoid and whatever. But once in a while, I'll see some that, oh, this is different, like a negative space or, things are kind of cool. Or maybe have like, I don't know, some Japanese influence. So it's a hodgepodge of many different things. And that's what you can do in art. There are no rules in art. You can, cultural appropriate, whatever. Art is art. It's supposed to be free and offend, cause violent reactions. That is the purpose of art, or good art. Good art, in my opinion, is to elicit an emotion. If you see art and it's like, okay, that's all right, that's cool, whatever. But then if you see one, oh shit, that pisses me off, that brings me joy and it inspires me, that is great art. But in a cultural practice, there are guardrails. I can't just grab a bunch of different things and just put it together. And, there is some artistic license, when we put the patterns together. But in general, there isn't much flexibility. Like I may put a pattern that is similar in a position of Lane or Natalia or Piper. But if all four of us tap it, it'll look a little different because there's so many variables. The tools that we're making, the person skin, the stretcher, all of that stuff. So that's where you have the small variances, even though it's the same pattern. But for me, I think that, yes, mixing various elements, it's beautiful artwork. And I can appreciate that. All right. So those are the 3 questions. Stay tuned next week for KK Labs, which is the experimental episode. And I don't know yet what I'm going to do. I don't know what I'm going to... Oh, yeah. I want to talk more about this hat. So this hat is Bucky's. So if y'all ever go to Texas or Alabama, that area, I was asking people like, hey, what should I do in Dallas? What do I need to film for this little side project I'm doing? Right? Oh, you got to go to Bucky's. So think of it as a big gas station convenience store, but like the size of a Walmart. And then apparently they have like the cleanest bathrooms, but they have some good food there that's kind of cheap, and they got like merch. It's kind of a wild place to be. So I took some video, so I hope I'll put that on my YouTube channel maybe next month when I kind of finish editing this thing. But yes, so please send me some questions for next month's